What I now want to do is talk about almost enterprise applications. So, in terms of this particular area, what we mean by this is, if we look at the 90s, where computing started to take off, and business operations were trying to get ahead from a strategic advantage point of view, the explosion of Visual Basic and Excel and client-server technology that people were then starting to harness and have a server sitting under their desk to do something that would help them be more productive within their business is now sort of being replicated, but via the cloud today. And what it's actually doing is the cloud is now providing some applications that can actually solve a particular piece of functionality or productivity tool within your business that can be accessed very quickly through the cloud. Now, I call that spot duty. So some of these cloud applications performing a spot duty function within the business that's going outside of the domain of IT and central IT management. Now, with that, obviously, the accessibility of these almost enterprise applications become easily procured because you're going outside of, you're going through your file, through the web, and you're downloading some productivity tool or measure that can help enhance your way that you're doing business. Now, that in itself is quite an interesting trend. Now, in WA, again, we're seeing a little bit of that adoption, but if you think about what's occurred within the GFC, particularly in Perth, you would have all seen that the coffee shop down the road has come and gone because the times are hard. We're all seeing the economic data around retail coming and going. But there is now new confidence within the marketplace of new enterprises and new startups. Now, the new enterprises and new startups are taking advantage of low-cost business and being able to transact through the cloud and the web. So, with that, there has been this explosion of capability through these almost enterprise applications where people can run their business on an iPad now if they wanted to. If you were a sole trader, a vendor of fax machines or whatever it is, you can pretty much run your payroll operation, your sales commission to your staff, your sales and ordering and logbook off your iPad, downloaded with software off the web. Now that paints a very different picture to what we're accustomed to, particularly in WA where we're quite asset intensive. We do have a heavy footprint of ERP vendors and applications within the business here that provide that core. It's the heartbeat behind the business that's structuring and protecting all that data. Here, it's rapid deployment, ease and availability, and the capability is starting to grow now. Now some of the stats there that you'll see, on salesforce.com, there's 800 applications available to download and procure. And if you jump on that site, they're pretty impressive. Someone's thought of business processes and someone's thought about how to transact and be productive in this space. And that's been one of the fastest growing businesses on the planet. They've doubled in size in the last 3 years, so it's pretty impressive. Google Apps is another one. They've got 3 million clients on their space using those applications. But let's take a look at adoption. So what we're seeing from a trend point of view is around software as a service being adopted first. And again, it comes back to those applications that are performing spot duty. So they're quite simple, they're quite easy to deploy, you get bang for your buck, there's not a lot of complexity around them, but they're being deployed quite easily. Now from that point onwards, the trend then becomes a little bit of adoption, a little bit of acceptance in terms of cloud and its application within the business. Then you start looking at platform as a service. So how do you actually procure a whole platform via the cloud that allows you to bolt things on, join other tools together and start to enhance your capability within the business. Thereafter, we're looking at, again, those applications performing spot duties dispersed in and amongst the business to then starting to move across to how do we now deploy this from an enterprise-wide application. Now, it comes with its risks, right? The cloud isn't perfect. There are still things associated with it that I'll just touch on here. So we've talked about trends of the past, we've talked about how that's being applied today, and it's sort of history repeating itself a little bit. But let's look at some of these perceptions, for example. So the first one around cloud and its ability to keep pace with some of the traditional vendors. Well, the fact is that they are catching up quite quickly. There's some pretty good functionality there. It's not perfect, but it's not to say that they're not a real threat or a competitive threat. The second one, I think, is probably the main one, particularly in WA, where, I mean, as Paul mentioned, safety is a big thing, business continuity is a big thing, particularly given the industries that we serve in WA. Now, the perception there around cloud being no problem, well, I think there is still a problem there. If you look at the sourcing contracts behind cloud, you look at the SLAs that sit behind that, what happens if something goes wrong is still a big concern here. And that still requires the CIOs and the GMs within those departments to really think about what their procurement and sourcing strategy is around this, and what contractual terms and conditions might need to be put in place for protective measures. Now, I think that is still quite a large hurdle to overcome, and that's why I think we're still seeing this divergence between apps playing spot duty versus a real deep dive into embracing the cloud and an enterprise-wide app that presents a different risk profile for the businesses. And then, obviously those particular issues around security and reliability, scalability and integration. And again, if we take those 90s behaviours as an example and history repeating itself, what we actually saw in the 90s was the proliferation of all these different disparate applications, Excel, Access, VB, Power Builder, you name it. They were all sort of sitting there performing a job. But as a CIO, coming forward to try and integrate my platform and provide some flexibility and scalability for my business going forward, it actually created a number of obstacles and challenges because some of these apps became mission critical. And as a result of that, you're starting to constrain your business. So unless a CIO and his team or her team can harness the ability to provide standards, guidelines, and prevent this maverick behaviour of people easily acquiring all these point solutions, businesses are going to sort of start to diverge too much, I think, from an IT space. Look, I'm just conscious of time, but that's kind of what I wanted to say about enterprise apps. I won't go into cyber intelligence, but what I want to do is just jump quickly into this perception here, and that is the death of the end of ERP. And what we mean by that is every 5 years or so we think the new trends taking off, Apple, iTunes, cloud, mobility, that's all going to destroy the ERP as we know it. Now, the fact of the matter is it couldn't be further from the truth. We're seeing new investment in ERPs. We're seeing license growth across SAP and Oracle still double digit, and we're still seeing businesses willing to invest in their current ERP platforms. So when you piece these things together, we need to ask the question, why is that? Why were people jumping on the bandwagon to say, well, it's the beginning of the end and so forth? We think there's two things going on there. First of all, from a business perspective, ERP still provides a very integrated and core platform within the business that provides good security of data, the single source of the truth, and that integrity that protects the heartbeat of the business. On the flip side, what has been discounted by those that jumped on the bandwagon and say that ERP is going to die a nasty death is that the ERP vendors have actually evolved in their capability. They're no longer just a financials and reporting vendor. When you look at what Oracle and SAP in particular do today, they're a very different being than what they were 10 years ago. Let me just talk about that. So what you see here on a timeline is sort of some of the major events that Oracle and SAP have actually undertaken. Now, the items in black pretty much acquisitions or transactions to do with their functionality, their functionality-driven transactions. So You see here where Oracle acquired PeopleSoft from a HR point of view, Siebel from a CRM point of view, and SAP launching their new platform, their ECC6, which has been implemented in a number of sites in WA. But more importantly, look at the trend. That one, in my mind, is the most important fact on that page right now. That was a $5.6 billion acquisition of Sybase by SAP. Now Sybase, if anyone knows the history behind Sybase, it has been in existence since about 1984. It came out of a database management scheme. It then got into core financial, core banking and finance applications. It then got into database messaging management and security. It's now one of the biggest around mobility and messaging. So when you start to look at that marriage between SAP and Sybase now, that tells a very telling picture about where the ERP vendors are going to go. Now, spending $5.6 billion on a transaction, in our mind, is a pretty big commitment in terms of what the future direction is of ERP. And that's why we're saying ERP is here to stay, particularly in WA, where we have very heavy asset-intensive organisations. There's geographic disbursement, and the data needs to be protected on that basis. So when you combine mobility, data, social media, and certainly some of the cloud operations, what's to say that these ERPs will not be accessible via a cloud-type arrangement going forward? So it's a pretty telling story. That's all I wanted to say about the re-emerging enablers.